brother!
Greetings, honorable battle brother.
Today we are discussing the Iron Hands.
The least written or talked about legion to ever be composed.
Yes. You see, here on this podcast we make many jokes about the Alpha Legion, but the Alpha Legion is done on purpose.
Yes.
Allegedly.
The Iron Hands, maybe not so much.
Yeah, the Iron Hands is because even though they have a really cool idea, there's not a lot really about them. Do they have a book?
They have... So... Not really. Not like everybody else. Ferrus Manus is talked about in other books, in other Legions books, and but I think there's only
one.
So there's one Horus Heresy book about the Iron Hands, I believe, and then there's the Primarch book about Ferrus Manus.
Okay.
But there are Iron Hands characters that are relevant and prevalent throughout the Horus Heresy, because after some stuff we're going to talk about happens, the Iron Hands sort of lead the counterattack against Horus and the Traitor Legions,
right.
as part of the Shattered Legions and the Orphans of War.
Right.
We're going to talk about some specific characters that are prevalent throughout like these side stories that go on.
Yeah. So we should talk about Ferrus Manus, as is the sacred tradition of our show. We talk about the Primarch way too much.
We talk about the Primarch way too much. So Ferrus Manus, literally meaning Iron Man.
Yes.
Ferrus in Latin for iron, Manus Latin for man.
Yes.
He is the Iron Man.
Yes.
He crash landed on the planet of Medusa, I believe.
Yep. Which is right next to the Eye of Terror.
Which is frightening, scary.
Yes.
So we don't know much about his upbringing, other than that, at some point, he obviously, the planet, the people on the planet of Medusa were very fractured into clans.
Yes.
And he, kind of perpetuated the clan infighting, because I should preface this, after he took control, he encouraged that the strong were the only ones to survive on his planet.
Yes.
At some point at his upbringing on Medusa, he murdered
No, there's something before that. He may have released the creature that he killed.
Yes, no, he did.
When he was born, or when he was a giant 7-foot-tall child, he discovered an X mark on the pod that brought him. The X mark on the pod, and then and he explored the pod and the chamber that he was in, and eventually he found a quote imprisoned colossal biomechanical worm.
It was a Necron. I don't know if it was a shard of a Catan, but it was Necron tech. Literally, it was because. So, skipping forward a little bit, he strangles this thing to death with his bare hands.
Yes.
In a pool of lava or something like that. And
pool of the specifics say, lava.
Cool, I remember shit right.
Yeah.
He strangled this thing to death, and the living metal that the Necron tech, that all Necron tech is composed of, literally separated from the mechanics of this giant dragon worm thing and attached itself to Ferrus Manus's hands.
Yes.
So in practice, he literally became Iron Hands.
He had iron hands.
This silver metallic liquid would embed itself onto his skin on his hands, and it would it was never hardened liquid, it never turned into a solid. It was always shifting around in liquid, and he could do stuff with it.
Forge metal by punching it really hard.
He could literally forge with his bare hands.
Would that make it easier or harder?
I guess if you were as good as he was, probably easier.
Also,
because he became one of the greatest smiths in the galaxy.
Yes. Apparently, this planet, the planet Medusa, had all these kind of weird the Necron Necron Jormungandr, the thing that he killed with his bare hands, was not the only robot life on this planet.
Really?
Yeah. On the planet Medusa, there were things like called Mecharachni and Phase Wraiths. So these are, in the way they phrase the Hu Nekter, which the Egyptianness makes it implies that this is a Necron-based planet.
Absolutely.
So something. Yeah. So Necrons died. So Necrons fought on this planet, and then eventually Necrons created. From what I'm assuming, from what we see here, it's not clear. It's not confirmed. But what I'm assuming is that the Necrons, like Tyranid creatures did on Catachan, they formed a kind of biosphere. So, like, the giant robot monsters on the planet are Necron life forms. I
get you. Right. That's frightening.
It is, yeah. So, after Ferrus Manus, after the Man of Iron got his hands of iron, his clan won.
Yes.
And eventually, he didn't really unify his planet.
On purpose.
Yes. Because he believed that the infighting made everything, like, the infighting forges, like, just as iron is forged upon the anvil, so too are the clans forged upon the anvil of eternal infighting and bickering, and this will make them strong.
Yes, yeah. At some point, he was given the nickname of the Gorgon.
By Fulgrim.
By Fulgrim, who became his best friend. We'll get to that in a second.
Yes.
But, like, not only did he not care that he was equated to the definition of ugly, he liked it. He actually enjoyed that nickname. And it's just a funny bit of character development, I guess, that GW decided to write about this character they wrote about at some point. Definitely. But eventually the Emperor would come and save Ferrus Manus.
Yeah.
Not save. He was doing
he wouldn't see. This isn't really saving. He just kind of, I have saved you from what's going on. Well, nothing really. I'm just kind of here. The clans are fighting. No clan is overly powerful. They leave me to my giant magma forge in the center of the highest peak on this planet. Life is good. He's like, sweet.
I don't like how that was a better Lehman Russ impression than you described during the Lehman Russ episode.
But this is supposed to be Scottish.
Okay, not really. That was more akin to what's his name? Zoran the Bear's Lehman Russ than you did when we were fucking talking about Lehman Russ. Whatever.
Damn
Moving
it.
on.
I should workshop this.
So, yes, he would eventually be reunited with the Emperor, and he would meet some of his brothers. He would be brought back to Terra, much like every other Primarch was, where he would discuss at length the Great Crusade with the Emperor. It was while he was staying on Terra, he would meet the Primarch Fulgrim.
Yes,
and it was just like a chill day. He was working out in the forge. He was just making shit
because that was a thing they had in this weird sci-fi planet. They still have just regular ass blacksmith forges.
So, fun fact: the blacksmith forge was in Mount Everest. It was the last. It was like the last. I think they were called the Terawatt people.
Yep, the Terawatt clan.
And they were like the master artisans that the Emperor didn't murder. And was like, hey, you guys should work for me, and then they did. But that's where the majority of the prototype designs for the rest of the Great Crusade's equipment would come from, these people.
Yep.
But he would meet Fulgrim in this massive forge complex where he would be where he was working, and then Fulgrim, in being a fucking prissy little bitch, would challenge him to basically a forge off.
Yes.
It was a Forged in Steel episode that lasted 3 entire months.
Non-stop, of course.
Non-stop.
Except probably with more homoeroticism on Fulgrim's part.
Probably, yeah. A lot more, stripping,
it looked
really, aggressively.
Like the old school glam metal videos where it's, unnecessary amounts of sparks and like a vest that covers absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
and just kind of White Snake is playing in the background.
For
and then
some
we cut over to Ferrus Manus, who was just in full protective gear, wearing a welding mask, just Clang, just going at it.
As these Primarchs are wont to do.
Yes.
But eventually, at the end of this forge off, each Primarch would present their works and would be told by the other ones that they won. You know, Ferrus Manus made this elegant sword that could light on fire at the fucking touch of a button.
Yes.
And he said, Fulgrim, you obviously beat me. And then Fulgrim said, no, of course you beat me.
Look at this giant fuck off hammer. Clearly,
Fulgrim
this is inferior.
made the hammer Forge Breaker. Okay, first off, lazy writing by GW. Like, what the fuck? Like, why on earth would Fulgrim make a hammer?
Never mind. Ferrus making a sword makes sense.
Ferrus would make anything. Ferrus would literally make anything. That makes sense. Why Fulgrim would make a hammer, other than he knew that Ferrus would like it, beats me.
Could you imagine if Fulgrim kept a giant fucking sledgehammer?
Well, I mean,
if you look at art of Ferrus Manus with Forgebreaker, it looks like Mjolnir with a long handle. Why would Fulgrim make Mjolnir with a long hammer?
I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
Anyway, they would become best friends forever. Well, not forever, for about 1,000 years, but we'll get to that.
Yep.
So the Great Crusade would kick off, and Ferrus Manus would lead his legion. He would be reunited with his legion, obviously, and would lead his legion into the Great Crusade.
Yep.
Talking about the legion, his legion,
the Stormwalkers,
because
and
that's
they were
cool
from
as fuck.
Albania.
Yeah, which was
Albia.
Actually,
is Albia England?
It was the British Isles after 30,000 years of war and fucking nuclear devastation.
So what you're saying is they're from
Fuck
Scotland.
Yeah, I guess so.
Somebody play me some aggressive bagpipes.
Okay. Well, I'll edit that in.
Yes, every time I do this voice.
Okay.
I won't do it often.
Technically, it was modern day British Isles, minus Ireland, because I don't want to give them that. But the Stormwalkers turning into the Iron Hands.
GW is British, so
this is true.
Of course, they wouldn't write about the Legion that probably has the Irish people in it.
Yeah. But the structure of the Iron Hands was significantly different than the structure of the rest of the legions, in that most other legions, like, each company would be made up of, your standard, it depends for the legion, but, like, let's just say the Ultramarines had chapter masters, captains, lieutenants, sergeants, and then line infantry.
A standard military hierarchy.
The Iron Hands would have that, but they would have significantly more tech marines, or, like, workshop serfs. Like, they were very much interested in creating mechanics, and so much so that most Iron Hands would prefer if they didn't have flesh, and that instead they had mechanics. Very similar.
Do you mean to tell me that they crave for the purity of blessed steel?
Yes, well, flesh is weak.
Amen.
And so they would replace their hands, they would replace arms. They're very interested in cybernetics.
Yeah. So there are
like,
some of them that just look like Terminators.
Like, so much so that they would actively dismay each other. They would make fun of each other. Not make fun of them, but they would be like, dude, what the fuck? Why do you still have both your human hands? Like, they craved for the upgradability of mechanics, of, prosthetics. They would prefer it to...
For the longest time, all we have ever wanted is complete modularity.
Yes. Exactly.
Yep. They're literally just standing on, just like,
brother, look at this poor, sad brother. He has both of his arms fucking cringe.
He's like, it's
laughter.
not my fault. I'm better at fighting than you are.
Ha ha, laughter. Ha ha, laughter. So this would continue. They would go on a bunch of different crusades with other legions, like the Sons of Horus, the Lunar Wolves. They would very much enjoy pairing with the Emperor's children, and they would continue to work together to further the Emperor's goals.
Yep. Question.
Yes.
Why is it that, for some reason, like, I understand why Fulgrim and Ferrus Manus got along, but why would the Emperor's children and the Iron Warriors get along?
The Iron Hands?
Yeah, the Iron Hands, yes.
That gets very confusing. Don't worry, you're not the only one who does that.
Okay. Cool. I'm glad it only happened this far into the episode. Because, like, the Emperor's children and the Iron Hands...
Twice in a row. Good job.
Yep. Very different philosophies.
Yes, they were very, very different.
Yeah. It was like...
And that's a good... I don't think that they got... It's not that they got along so well, is that they operated as foils to each other.
Ah. Well, that makes more sense, because it's like... I'm, like, Lucius the Eternal, and my best friend, Fergus Crushkill, and it's just a fucking Terminate, not a Not like a 40K Terminator, like a Terminator movie. Terminator walks
like Arnold
out.
Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. Dun 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 dun. Clang clang. Hello, brother. It is good to see you, best friend. Yes, we are best friends. Can't you see how alike we are?
First off, Lucius didn't have any friends, and that was half of his problem.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, they got along together. I think mostly because their dad said so.
Oh, so it's like it's the standard cousin protocol is what they're saying.
Yes, precisely. Yeah, and I mean technically they were cousins, so yes. I mean it works in multiple ways there.
Yep.
So moving on to the Horus Heresy. Yeah. Fulgrim would eventually come in possession to the Lair Blade, and would become slowly corrupted by Slaneshi demons. If you want to learn more about that, maybe go to the Fulgrim episode. We discussed him at length, unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah.
But eventually, Fulgrim would be convinced by Horus to join him in rebellion.
Yeah.
And Fulgrim was tasked by Horus to bring Ferrus into the fold or eliminate him from the opposition.
Fulgrim was tasked by Fulgrim to go do this.
Yes, also that. He was also told by the voices in my head to do this. And he would eventually come across the Iron Hands, and he would have a discussion with Ferrus Manus. And this discussion goes about as well as you'd think. Ferrus Manus basically says, "What the fuck are you talking about? Why would you even try this?" And Fulgrim gets very angry that Ferrus Manus would not see reason. And then they kind of just smack each other for like 45 minutes.
Just, how dare you? No, you listen here, back and forth for 3 days, nonstop.
Yeah, so Ferrus Manus basically says, "Fulgrim, you need to fucking stop or I'm going to kill you." And they hit each other with the weapons that they made for each other.
Yes.
Yeah, so Fireblade, the sword that Ferrus made, and Forgebreaker, not Stormbreaker.
Smash Boy.
Yes, they hit each other, but it results in an explosion.
Yes.
Fulgrim is knocked unconscious, and Ferrus Manus is stunned, and this kind of like, it breaks Fulgrim into a bunch of different pieces, because now he's like, my closest friend wouldn't even trust me, like, this is all this, and we talk about how Fulgrim gets more manically depressive as time goes on in his episode, so listen to that.
Yeah, and how Fulgrim really doesn't like being told no.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of, Istvan 5.
Yes, so, the Traitor Legions, the original Traitor Legions, set down on Istvan V and prepare to dig in against the Emperor's Retribution. And this Retribution fleet is obviously, we've talked about this a bunch of different times now, but it is, the vanguard is led by Ferrus Manus, Vulcan, and the other one, Corvus Corax.
His power is to be sneaky, so of course you forgot about him. He deletes himself from your mind.
Exactly.
That's not entirely a joke. We'll get into that.
No, we'll get into that when we talk about him in fucking 6.5 years. But yes, the drop site massacre happens. The Iron Warriors, not the Iron Warriors. I did it now. The Iron Hands smash into the advancing forces of the. I was about to say Thousand Sons, but that's not right at all. The Emperor's Children.
Yes.
And they go head to head. They combat very effectively. The Ferrus Manus swings in and fucking butchers a lot of dudes.
Yes.
But he eventually comes face to face with a very slowly corrupted, but indefinitely dangerous Fulgrim, and they duel each other. And if you've ever seen the art of this, it's fucking amazing. But basically, in this battle, Fulgrim gets the upper hand on his brother, and he doesn't know what to do. And in that hesitation, the demon that's been corrupting Fulgrim takes over and decapitates Ferrus Manus.
Yep. Transforming Fulgrim into the demon prince of bad touch.
Yes, and transforming Ferrus Manus into a very dead Primarch.
Yep. Allegedly. According to Lexicanum, allegedly, Ferrus Manus' corpse was taken to... No.
Nope. Ferrus Manus is dead. He's the only... I think he's the only confirmed dead Loyalist Primarch.
No, they said they took his corpse to Mars. That doesn't mean anything. That could mean that they just tried to turn him into a giant Primarch-sized servitor and failed.
Yeah. Exactly. But, I mean... This is a very good character piece on Ferrus Manus, from what we understand, is that he was very headstrong and irrational.
Yep.
So, when his brothers said, Ferrus, you need to calm down, you need to stop, you need to slow down, wait for the other legions to show up, and he just said, fuck it, and just kept running forward.
Yeah.
That put a lot of people at a lot of disadvantages, because they were trying to keep up with this.
Yeah.
And so, as a result, Ferrus Manus, being a headstrong asshole, kind of sealed the fate of the Loyalist legions.
Right. If only any of the Primarchs had any kind of mental help, then who knows?
Imagine that. But yes, so after this, the Iron Hands would be shattered, essentially.
Yep.
And they're the very few surviving. So, in comparison to the Salamanders and the Raven Guard, the Iron Hands lost less, because the Salamanders were essentially brought down to, like, I forget the numbers, but like a 15th of their legion.
Yes.
And the Raven Guard only left Istvan with, like, I think Corvus Corax says upon extraction from the planet, he says, I came to this planet with 100,000 men, I leave with less than 1,000.
Yeah, that's about what happened.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But the Iron Hands lost less than that, because they were so hardy. They were very...
They were robots.
Exactly. And it's hard to kill robots, as everybody knows. So the Iron Hands would continue to live very struggled lives. Essentially, they became the leaders of the Shattered Legions.
Yes.
So these surviving legions would go on to basically conduct guerrilla warfare assaults on the traitor legions as they made their way closer to Terra. The most interesting group of this, most interesting example of this, was the crew of the Sisypheum.
Yes.
Fun fact, and I had this conversation with Aneysies not too long ago, it took me about 3.5 years to realize the root word of Sisypheum is Sisyphus. Sisyphus being the Greek tragedy of the man who has to roll the boulder up the hill every single day.
Yep.
Well, it makes sense now, because the fucking boulder is them trying to fight off this horrendous civil war, trying to make it to the end of this mountain, and then every day having to do it again because the odds are so surmountable against
Every
them.
once in a while, GW has, like, a good idea.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy.
Yeah, who'd have thought?
Yeah, but the crew of the Sisypheum would be led by a Iron Father of the... Iron Father being a very unique name.
Yeah.
Rank.
Shedrack?
No, Shadrach Medusan was a different dude.
Okay.
No, this guy was named Branthan. I forget his first name, but he was basically critically injured on during the drop site massacre, and was basically hooked up to this iron lung that kept him alive on the ship of the Sisypheum, and eventually he'd be put into a dreadnought, I believe. But he basically led this very muddled group of Raven Guard. That's where Sharokin, Nakia Sharokin, the Raven Guard, the fucking Grim Reaper himself. We'll talk about him a bunch later. But yeah, he was a member of this crew, as well as Riven. I forget. Not as important. Another member of the Iron Hands. But it was because of their ideology that the flesh is weak that this crew would remain surviving with Branthan at the head of them. Shadrach Medusan was another interesting dude. He led a very considerable force against Horus himself. Literally, there was a situation where he literally ran strafing runs on Horus, Mortarion, and Fulgrim's position. Like, he literally came over in like a Thunderhawk himself in a plane and was like, fuck this, and just leaned in on a minigun and tried to murder all three of them at once. And then Mortarion took a scythe, his scythe,
Angst chopper.
He literally chucked it at the plane. Chucked around the plane, and he dragged the plane down with a chain attached to it, and like with his bare hands. It was the coolest fucking scene ever.
His scythe was called Silence.
Silence was the... Yes, Silence and Lantern were his tools, yeah. That's right. I get confused.
That's alright.
But yes,
Typhus's thing was called Endbringer.
That's what it was, yeah. Okay, cool. I couldn't remember that. So Shadrach Medusan would lead this guerrilla warfare, very personal guerrilla warfare campaign against the Sons of Horus. Mm-hmm. It was Little Horus, Horus Aximand, that would eventually face Shadrach Medusan in single combat, and he almost lost. So much so, Shadrach Medusan cut Little Horus's face off.
Wow.
Yeah, imagine that. Imagine getting your face fucking separated from your body. But
so
yeah,
you mean tell me that young Horus wasn't as strong as big Horus?
Correct, because Little Horus was just a standard old Marine. We'll talk about him
whenever we talk about Horus.
Yeah, which is soon, I think. 16, maybe? I think? Yeah, I think they're 16. But yes, so the Shattered Legions would continue to wage this war. A couple were present on Terra, not many. I think only a handful were there on Terra. Right. But eventually, after the heresy was over, they would be rebuilt, and they would have a few successor chapters, not nearly as many as those of like the Ultramarines or the Blood Angels, but you know they would be rebuilt. An interesting thing, though, about 6,000 years after the Horus Heresy, there was a civil war inside the Iron Hands chapter, where the chapter would basically have a fundamental disagreement with itself on the, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was basically
this is the tempering, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay. So, it was a debate on whether or not emotions were bad.
Interesting.
So, hold up. Okay, so it took place during the Horus Heresy. Some within the Legion wanted to take revenge, while others wanted to move on. Where some of them, where the split was whether or not to indulge in emotions and the need for revenge, or to just keep going because emotions are why Ferrus Manus died.
Oh, okay.
So,
There was So, fun fact: there was another disagreement that happened besides that one.
Do
where
tell.
The fundamental disagreement between the Iron Hands and the now created Sons of Medusa chapter was over the Astronomicon, and the so I'm reading this off a thing here, so please bear with me.
All right.
The Moray Tech Creed was based on the prophetic wave calculations of the triad of tech mystics who believed that they had discerned a series of predictive patterns within the micro-fluctuations of the Astronomicon psychic beacon. They believed that the geometric patterns contained the word of the Omnissiah and the God Emperor, from which the skein of future history and humanity's destiny could be read.
Do you mean to tell me that they looked at the TV static in their beacon?
Yes.
And was like, this shit is the future.
Yes.
It is the word of God.
Yes. So that is what drove the Iron Warriors to basically separate. There was a massive schism, and they one went one way and the others went the other way. That's what the Sons of Medusa believe.
Yeah.
Fun fact about the Sons of Medusa is they do not have even close to a codex compliant structure because they don't have a chapter master. They have a council of 3 Iron Thanes, sort of like almost like spiritual leaders, like
shamans.
They're like shamans, but they're like techno shamans.
So
without librarius powers.
So you mean to tell me that they're just AdMech?
They're just AdMech, but like space marines.
Big AdMech.
They're large really fast AdMech.
This is true.
Continuing on with sort of the big famous Iron Warriors, Iron Hands. I did it 3 times now, I think. There was Gabriel Santar. Santar was the...
keep going. I'm just scrolling through Lexicanum. I say that as like a force of habit. I'm just kind of scrolling through Lexicanum because we got there's a lot of stuff, but like the big list of famous dudes is not here. There's a bunch of events, but like the list of famous dudes is not here.
Gabriel Santar was the first captain, I believe, of the Iron Hands, pre-heresy. He was the captain of the Morlock clan, and everybody in the Morlock clan, I believe, were First Company people. Like, they literally were bred into the First Company, which is odd. But that's where all their heavy hitters were. Gabriel Santar is a scary motherfucker.
I see.
His lightning claws are like an extra like 15 feet long for some reason. It's just frightening. Other than that, like the Iron Fathers, most of the Iron Fathers were interesting characters. The ones that were written about, obviously, not all of them were written about.
He was killed by the first captain of the Emperor's Children.
Eidolon? Or...
Julius Caesarin.
Caesarion.
Yes, that guy.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so
Estevan 5.
Yes, so once the Emperor's Children sort of started, like, weirdifying themselves, started, like, engineering themselves with, like, all these abilities, like Eidolon had that weird face thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is where the similarities can kick in.
Yes.
The pursuit of perfection. The pursuit of perfection through both bio and mechanical engineering.
Right.
Where Eidolon and, what was his name, Fabius Bile decided to make their labs squishy and full of various melted protoplasms and, like, flesh cultures. The Iron Hands decided to make all their labs look like metal skeletons.
Yeah, and they both thought that they were going the right direction.
Yep.
And they very much disagreed with the with the other's interpretation.
Yep. Hey, While we're here on the subject of Ferrus Manus, did we ever talk about how Fulgrim made a bunch of clones of had Fabius Bile make a bunch of clones of Ferrus Manus that he tried turning to chaos a bunch of different times, and he failed every single time, but he kept going.
That's so fucking strange.
Whereas clones, I found it. Following the drop site massacre, a mentally volatile Fulgrim would have Fabius Bile clone Ferrus. However, these clones proved unstable, and each refused to turn against the Emperor, forcing Fulgrim to once again kill his brother and driving him even madder.
Ah.
So yes, Fulgrim literally did the thing in the movie where you replay the messages on your phone from your ex who never let you get that last word in.
Yeah.
Reinforcing all of the gay jokes I've made about Fulgrim.
True. True. But other than that, there's not a whole lot more to talk about with the Iron Hands.
We could talk a little. Wrench.
What'd you say?
He fought with a wrench.
Yeah, he did.
Ferrus Manus was also seen fighting with a giant power weapon wrench. a power wrench.
That's an achievement.
He just went to one of his dudes. He just sat down and was like, "You see this wrench? This giant Primarch-sized monkey wrench that we use for messing with the coolant tubes in my giant tank? Oh, we forgot to talk about that. These dudes in their giant fucking city-sized tanks.
Yeah.
That's the thing they did. Medusa was known for having giant city-sized mining vehicles. Yeah. And the Iron Warriors continued their tradition. Their fortress monastery is a giant mobile tank the size of a country. I need to find what it is called right now. Organization. Okay. Continue with your closing thoughts while I search for the name of this thing.
Okay, so the Iron Hands, obviously, we don't know. I mean, we know about them, but there's not much to know about them because there's not much other than, like, consistent characters that came out of it. There aren't many. They were always just there. And they weren't really contributing much because there wasn't much to contribute. They weren't written very well. I mean, the characters were written very well, but Ferrus Manus isn't written about, and the Legion itself isn't written about. There were just characters from the Legion that happened to be in other stories. And it's a shame because they're literally space blacksmiths who are also, like, full-time mechanics. Yes. Who are also cyborg men.
Yes.
So
who live in tanks.
So, like, why wouldn't you want to write about that? Why wouldn't you write more about that? And unless I'm just completely fucking stupid and I haven't seen that there are other books written about these guys,
please tell us in the email, which we have.
Tell me.
The battlebrothercast.gmail.com.
Please do that. Yes. Okay, what are you thinking?
I cannot find it, but that's fine. These guys. Oh, I found it. The chapter Fortress Monastery. As the volcanic and earthquake-prone thing, every clan has this mobile fortress base called the Land Behemoth, which is basically a city on wheels. It's a tank the size of, like, a state.
Oh, Jesus
that they all live in. That all of the different clans just have.
Well, Medusa is a shit place to live.
It's like, that is awesome! Why are you not talking about that, GW?
Yeah.
That's
cool
as hell. It is a legion of tech marines. As a person who likes to make dumb things in his basement, I would want a legion that lets me feel like I can have these space marines wielding a giant baseball, wielding seven plumbing apprentice shops worth of wrenches and have it be entirely canon.
Yeah.
How dare you? My question is, did they not write about this because of the AdMech, or because they wanted to make Tech Marines and Legions be special? Because this is functionally a Legion of Tech Marines.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they had an unnatural affinity to working with mechanics and stuff, so I don't know why they wouldn't push that further.
Because, yeah.
Here's a book about how they change all their gear. Here's a book about why they're obsessed with this. Here's a book about anything about these people.
I don't know. I guess from a corporate standpoint, it's because they probably weren't selling well.
Because they don't sell well. They don't. They still don't.
Well, I mean, at this point, it's kind of a recursive cycle.
Yes.
But, think about it. You have Space Marines.
Hey, don't worry. They got Black Templar models coming out. Ignore all the shitty IP stuff we got going on. Did somebody say Black Templars?
Yes. Yes, let us not forget, they did release Orc models. That excuses them for all of their bullshit.
Right.
So, think about it. These guys are cool enough to where they had the AdMech purposefully care, where the AdMech actually cares about them.
Yes.
The AdMech doesn't care about their own people.
Right.
And they like and respect the Iron Hands. But do we get Iron Hands books?
Nope.
Disappointing.
Now watch, it's the curse of our show. They're gonna come out with new Iron Hands books.
Hell yeah, because back when we made jokes about them not making Jagatai Khan books about the White Scars, they came out with Jagatai Khan's Primarch book, and then the Krieg we made jokes about the Kriegers here, and then they made the Krieger kill team. So thank you to all 70 of you. All 70 of you different people who listen and enjoy this. Congratulations. You are contributing to the magical powers that we have to influence GW through the power of not really having GW pay attention to us.
Yup.
Through the power of psychic effort, we will get them to release Iron Hands stuff.
We're just manifesting it.
Absolutely. At this point, what else can you call it?
Yeah.
In conclusion, I like the consistency of metaphors that we use here. These guys are Forge Paladins, which if you've ever played a tabletop game, Forge Paladins are awesome as fuck.
Yes, they're like a hybrid paladin and mechanist.
Yes.
Mechanist?
They make
or
machinist.
Artificer.
Yes.
That's the class.
Would you like a paladin that can make their own swords and armor and other cool stuff?
Right.
This is that. Oh wait, I just realized the salamanders.
That's the salamanders. It's a current theme. We'll talk about them when we get to them.
Yeah. It's just sad, bro. This is cool.
Yeah.
This is really cool, and there's they don't have their own books. Do they even have their own codex for tabletop?
No, I think it's a codex supplement.
They're not even DLC.
Right.
They're seasonal event stuff.
To be fair, not most of them don't have their own codex.
That's true.
I think only off the top of my head, the Dark Angels, the Grey Knights, and maybe the Blood Angels after Baal came out, Devastation of Baal. But other than that, everything else is in their own.
But the Salamanders have a codex.
No, they have a supplement page.
Oh, wow. So you mean to tell me that besides the really easy lame ones, the other ones are just DLC, or seasonal event DLC?
Correct.
Damn. This is why I don't play tabletop.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they go where the money is.
That's true. Ain't that the truth?
Ain't that the truth, brother?
So, the fact that they don't get anything is a crime and a shame. They deserve something more than just a feature credit on a bunch of different conflicts.
Yeah, which is pretty much what they're brought down to at this point.
Yeah. It's a damn shame. We could have had something that's literally just they could have literally just made a dude who was literally a secondary and Think of all the counter-punch shit you could do with this.
Yeah.
With Fulgrim and Ferrus.
Yeah.
And, like, the Emperor's Children, the Iron Hands, in their different directions of space marine transhumanism.
You are weak, Fulgrim. You are weak, Corvus.
Look at you with your squishy flesh body. Cringe. Boo. But
Get out of here, Ghost Ferrus.
But
Leave me alone.
The real Ferrus Manus would never say that. Yes, I would.
You are weak, Vulcan.
Do we even have quotes to use?
For Ferrus Manus? Probably not. He said words at some point, I think.
Ferrus Manus communicated exclusively by just kind of...
Here's a quote.
Angron yelled... Okay. Prepare your bagpipes. Rest! We were not made to rest. We go on, unflinching, unstoppable, unending in our strength. The Emperor did not make us for such mortal concerns as hearth and home, vanity or contemplation. We are his engines of war, his hammers beating out the fabric of existence into a vessel fit for mankind to inhabit. They can take our lives, but they'll never take our socket wrenches!
Okay. So with that...
I think that's a good point to end the episode.
I think that's a good point to end now.
Tune in next week where we talk about Angron.
No. Oh, you're never gonna get it right. Every time you get it wrong.
Who are we talking about then?
Just ask me from now on. It's fucking Sangunius.
God damn it. I think I'm just gonna have the fucking document we used way back in the beginning open.
Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't.
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not thinking that far ahead.
You're right.
None of us think that far ahead.
And that's why we're here.
Yep.
Okay, everybody listening, have a great day, night,
Wherever.
Drive home, drive to work, wherever you're listening from.
Yep.
And we will see you next time when we talk about the glorious Hawkboy Sanguinius.
Ave Imperator, brother.
Ave Imperator.